So let's take a look at that lifespan. If we come here and maybe, so this visualization is based on that age, okay? So this will go from white to black. Maybe we'll change that. Let's see if we do just something, I don't know if there's an, can I do it? Oh, great. Can do like an automatic thing like that. Just change the colors, maybe two-tone. Yeah, that could be good. Okay, so over a second, we should see the colors. Yeah, you see the colors changing? Let's go to a later point where we've got more. There we go. So we're seeing the age of them. It's a bit, let me change this actually to white to red would be good. Yeah, just simple. So when the points are white, they're very young. And then when they become red, fully saturated red, then they are, you know, closer to a second in age. And then they disappear once they become red, right? So yeah, that age is much too old for me, of the life, you know, is much too long. So again, those long kind of streams of points which don't look natural. If you think about something breaking open, it breaks, you get a, you know, at the point of breaking, it's going to scatter a load of debris points, and then it's going to stop, right? So let's bring this down to 0.1. See how that looks. Let's reset the simulation. You can see that blue bar there. It makes me think that it's not going to update with these new values, right? So just hit that reset simulation and wait for that to come out. You can see them dying much quicker now. There we are. That looks great. I'm also noticing, well, that will be, I'm seeing these two lines, but I think that's because there's two, you know, that's just the two edges coming away from each other. But that it kind of reminded me of what we're doing here. We're scattering from the onto the edges, right? So just literally onto the, it's hard to show because this this geometry is so thin, so really it doesn't really matter. But we've just got points along the edges here. But it would be good to have them on the surface, especially if you had a thicker geometry. So, and I want just the same amount. So I'm just going to copy this value and paste it in here, paste relative reference. Okay, so we just have the same amount. And that's separate all over the surface now. It's probably because we need to reset it. And it shouldn't do the same. We'll probably get a lot more points now as well. There we go. Okay, so we're getting the points coming through again there. So what we also want is to add a collider into this. So let's drop a collision source. And this does need to come from the unpacked geometry, unfortunately, because again, that takes a bit of time. Well, I think you can just plug it in here and it will, but it will just unpack it internally. So you're not really saving any time, but this way you've got control over the attributes that you want to transfer over. Okay, so this will create a VDB, which we can't see because it is too coarse. There we go. So we're starting to see something there. It's really strange effect that. But what we can do, which should help, is to peak this out a bit as the geometry is so thin. Okay, I'm going to peak it just a tiny bit. Can see that? Okay, and then maybe we could, if necessary, maybe shrink it down after. Okay, so if we, there we go. So you see the difference there. Now we're seeing the whole road, and there we've got these weird squares for some reason. Okay, and yeah, what we could do is drop a VDB reshape SDF and just change this to a road, so that will kind of, as it sounds, you know, road it, so bring it in a little bit, but that's obviously too much. Let's do 0.05. There we go. Okay, so that will just kind of bring it closer to the original geometry. Okay, we can't go too much because it will just, we'll start to get holes in it. I'll leave it on 0.05. Okay, and so we need that and this. Okay, I don't think we need to do anything else in here. So let's name these properly. So we'll call this out. This is polygonal geometry collision, so pol col, it's just my habit, I call them that, and out VDB col. Okay, so we need to bring these into the simulation. Later on I'll be connecting this to here, in fact, okay, because we'll obviously want to collide with a whole bridge, and at that point it will run much slower. This, creating this VDB does take a bit of time, unfortunately. Right now it's not too bad, but I'm sure you can imagine, without this delete and without this delete, we got a whole lot more geometry, but it will help our simulation. So let's bring it in to the simulation. Let's dive inside here. Drop a static object. Okay, we'll merge that in before the, well, I don't think it matters. You can go before or after the gravity, really. Drop that in there. Very important that this comes into the left. Okay, and let's start to import the geometry. So subpath will be the polygonal geometry. Out pol. Okay, so that brings in the geometry. So what this will do, if we go into collisions, we will be using volume collisions here, right? This will generate a volume in here from that polygonal geometry, but we don't want that. We want to use the volume that we generated ourselves, the VDB, which will be faster than what this will be doing. Okay, so we change the mode to volume sample, so we're sampling the volume that we created, and then going down here to import that volume, that proxy volume, which will be out VDB col. Okay, and that's basically it. We also want deforming geometry, very important. And now we should be able to visualize it. So if we turn that off and go to collision guide, there we go. So we can see there our geometry still looks a bit thin. Let's go out here, maybe get rid of that. See how that looks. Bit better. This shouldn't have any effect. Let me just double check that everything's working. Yeah, you can see that's not doing anything there. So maybe we'll peak it a little bit more. 0.02, maybe. How does that look? Bit better. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. A few holes, doesn't matter. That'll be fine. Turn this off because the collision guide does make it run much slower. Okay. So let's dive out here. You can see, I think, yeah, we'll be exporting that collision geometry as well, which we don't want. We just want this pop object, so just copy that, paste that here, and then there we go. So we'll just get the particles from there now, and then let's visualize that. So let's maybe run another flipbook with this. Come out here, I don't know, something like that, and let's, I just want to see the, the particles falling down as well. There we go. Let's see how that comes out. There we are. So you can see we're not getting those streams anymore. I really like this kind of little bounce there. So you can see there that it's obviously following the velocity of the geometry. We're getting nice kind of spread. What you want is a bit of a spread. You don't want to go over the top with that adding the velocity to the inherited velocity, because you just kind of get a mist of points. You still want some kind of shape. We got bits, clumps, and a bit of shape to it. Basically, you don't want them to be just kind of everywhere, because then it's, it doesn't look natural. Okay, so it's kind of, yeah, finding a balance so you don't get that stepping. You can also add sub steps to remove the stepping, but that will add a lot more points and a lot more time to your simulation, even though this is running pretty fast now. But when we do the full simulation, we'll run quite a bit slower. But yeah, it's not so bad. I think next we can move on to the full simulation.